Welcome to the show, Ryan.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well, thank you.
Aisha, I love that open.
Well, thank you.
I feel like there's a lot of pressure now on me to deliver as a courage expert.
And you will.
Oh, of course. Yeah, let's get into it.
Absolutely. So, how did you become an expert on courage? Do you
That's
have a
such
backstory you can share with us?
I mean, what a fair question. What a
How
fair
many
question.
courage experts do we know?
All right, so like to be very clear, um, the universe is a funny thing. I am an observationalist. All right, that's what I do for a living. Um, and I'm a storyteller. So about 5 years ago, I was running a creative agency in Southern California. We were about 90 people. And it was the first time in my career where I wasn't needed in the day to day. I had hired well. And this was tricky because as a creative, I like to create. And now I'm moving into the land of management. And I'm like, oh, wait a minute, happy place. Is this really what I wanted as we're growing? And I needed something to do. I think that's really what happened, just to like keep me happy.
So,
And
management wasn't making you happy.
I enjoy problem solving, but I also enjoy creating. And so I just there was a it was this it wasn't clear, but I knew that there was more for me to do. And I remember, when you're based in San Diego, which is my home now after a decade in New York City, I remember thinking, wow, we're now officially a big company for little San Diego, but we're like a little company in the grand scheme against New York and San Francisco and LA. When you think of like creativity, that you're not thinking fish taco land, you're thinking the bigger
New York
markets.
City.
Exactly. And but there was like a little aha moment that I had, which was every single time our team would work on the courageous idea, they'd stay later, they were happier, and when our clients bought those ideas, the return was through the roof. And every single time we worked on the safe idea, my office was empty at 4:59. I had a closed door meeting with somebody, and the return was meager at best. And so I remember going to my partners at the time and being like, I think I've landed on our positioning. Courageous ideas are the only ones that matter. I want to go write a book about this. I think this is something that we could use as a devious marketing tool to position the business. And they're like, yes, go do it, go on the adventure, go on the journey. And the very first interview I had, and at this point, by the way, I have my own fears, right? I'm like, one, I'm not qualified to write a book. How do you do that? And then second, I'm driving. My first interview is with a founding astronaut at Virgin Galactic, and she's like, "Come up and have lunch with me." And she says, when I get there, before our trays even hit the table, she says, "So, what makes you qualified to write a book about courage?" Touche astronaut. I'm like, well, I have been writing pithy one-liners on Twitter for a living. That's pretty courageous. And she's like, no, 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 no. She's like, listen, your brain is putting the emphasis where I'm not. Part of your journey is to figure out why you're writing this book. And then she proceeded to tell me that her definition of success is when there's no daylight between the personal you and the professional you. And that was the line that got me as someone that had been in the service business for 20 years. I remember driving back to San Diego with like my knuckles in the 10 and 2 position in silence, thinking about, okay, this is not this book is not what I thought it was going to be. Um, now looking back on it, I got to take 3 years and interview the brave, the bullish, and the brainiac, and take what I learned from them and realize like we can learn how to be courageous. We just don't know how to do it. We want to be courageous. We confuse it with an act of impulse. We confuse it with a careless act. We confuse it with a resilient act. They're all very different than an act of courage. But it took me going on that journey and sitting with all these like sage people. So I joke, I wrote the book thinking I was going to use it to position myself in my last life. It really gave me the courage to fire myself and to start Courageous, which is now, gosh, 2019 is when we started. Launched the book in 19, and then we got very good press on the book. And next thing you know, I'm sharing what I learned from all these amazing people at Google and Snap. Google took me with them to some of their clients, and the rest has been history. And now it's just been so. Again, I'm not a Navy SEAL. You know, I've never been to space. I can't even figure out what tattoo I'd want. Uh, you know, but when it comes to deconstructing courage and helping people spot a moment uh, when they should unlock it, and as you said, even in the open, often we know what we need to do, but knowing what to do and doing it are two very different things.
So since 2019 and your own self-discovery of what courage means, what definition have you arrived at? What is courage to you? And how is that different from what another person can see, the average person sees courage as?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked the question. And my sense is if there's one thing you take away from our conversation, and I say you, I mean the listener, I hope you do too, by the way, is my rabbit hole moment was if you actually look at the dictionary definition of courage, it's the ability to do something that frightens you. And look, I'd say of the 340 million people that live here in the country, 330, 325 have no interest in doing things that scare them, let alone doing those things at work. Right? Uh,
Absolutely.
so 95% of us are freeze or flight. Only 5% of us are fight. So when I looked at that definition, I was like, well, where's the utility in that? How does that help me spot a courageous moment? And so, you know, I go on my journey, and this is the one thing I hope everybody takes away. My definition of courage is knowledge plus faith plus action equals courage. And it needs to be all three of these levers. So, how often have you known the right thing and felt it, and then we don't do anything about it? And for those of you in the data business, data is a means to knowledge. It's not knowledge itself, right? So, to me, knowledge plus faith without action is paralysis. Faith and action without knowledge is a reckless move. And knowledge and action without faith. And when we talk about faith, we mean like inner belief. You know, we don't mean it in the religious sense. If you
Inner
know
belief in yourself or inner belief in the unknown?
a little bit of both. I mean, again, as your knowledge grows, your faith is probably going to grow, even if it's taking on something new, right?
Correct, of course.
So, but a lot of people stay at companies a long time. You've been in a business for 15 years, you've got the knowledge, you're going through the motions and you're taking action, but like you're numb on the inside. There's no faith. So, knowledge and action with no faith to me is safe. It's status quo. And when you're not there to defend an idea in this media obese world we're living in, that's just not going to do the job. So, to me, it's knowledge plus faith plus action equals courage. And in the book, I go into greater detail. Okay, well, which knowledge should you follow? How do you actually build internal faith? And where should I take action? Where shouldn't I take action? But that is the definition that I like to use. Another way to say it is, what do I think about this? How does it make me feel? What am I going to do about it? And for the listener, let's say you are stuck on something. You are spinning on something. I would break a piece of paper into three. And in the left-hand column, I'd put, what do I think about this? Which is the knowledge side. In the middle, I'd put, what do I feel about this? Which is the faith side. And on the right, I put, okay, what am I going to do about this? Which is the action side. Think, feel, do. And hopefully, as you start to write it out, it can give you an action plan to taking your first step or next step or whatever it is you're trying to do.